Welcome back, everybody. We are now going to work on section 14 in the sample apps tutorial document. And you can see the topic here for this particular section is model binding. And this is actually kind of an interesting thing, because if you read the very first sentence of this section, it says, the MVC model binding allows you to map HTTP request data with a model. So now that's kind of, maybe that's still a little vague, okay? But I think that the thing that's really critical here is that you see that the stuff that you're doing on the front end with your form requests and the interchanges that happen, whether it's GET or POST, that you're tying it directly to the data that's attached to the model, and therefore can manipulate it directly. One thing that's kind of neat about that is it allows you to kind of leverage a bunch of different automatic tools, and some of them we've kind of already been introduced to. And what they jump into immediately here is actually adding a view to the thing that we were just working on in section 13. So that's why it was kind of critical for us to make sure that chapter 13, we left that with it working, and that's why I did that one little supplemental video there. So let's go ahead and actually jump in and give this a try. All right. So they want us to actually take a look at the app that we were working with, and it says here we're going to add a create view in our project from the last chapter. So I'm going to pull this off to my second screen, folks, as per usual, and get that kind of situated so I can see it. All right, so we're going to be working in the employee controller, and we're going to add this method that you see here. There's not really a significant amount of code, so let's go ahead and grab this. And now something in the back of my head is telling me that maybe we already have this code in here, and actually it was a student that told me, so I cannot tell a lie. It's already there. So you can see that on the screen here that it matches up with what we have in the book. So it is actually all in place already. All right, so this is the create action for the post approach. So you see HTTP post up here. So when we're sending the data, this is the create code. All right, but our process here is to add the view. So we're going to go ahead and right-click anywhere within here, anywhere within that method, and then click Add View. All right. The view name, of course, will be Create, and we do want to choose a template, and of course, we're going to use Create for the template. And then we also need to pick a model, and we really only have one choice. We haven't really done a lot of route config here, so we know it's not that. In fact, we haven't done any route config. In the tutorial, I'm just going to point this out, they have this extra box here that isn't relative to what we're doing, and you can see that in Visual Studio 2017, they actually pulled that box out of this interface. And all the other stuff can stay as is. So that's on page 105. Go ahead and click Add. And then that's going to generate a view that's going to drop into the views folder. And then you can see it just created create.cshtml. All right. And then we're just going to do a little bit of a review of the code here. And just look at what it created by default. This is pretty standard stuff. You see all the HTML helpers that are built in, all the little razor directives. And then I'm just doing a quick compare with the code that's in the book on page 106 and 107. Yes, and I'm scrolling on both screens here. You can't see my second screen. I think it'll be really cool someday if I get one of these recorders where I can show both my screens at the same time. Of course, that'd probably be kind of interesting to look at on YouTube. So here's a thought for kind of like a application or a website we could develop if you guys want to be creative, right? We could create a website that does dual screen YouTubes. And, you know, I I bet you somebody's already done it. All right, so it looks like we're pretty good here. All right. Now, I'm scrolling down to page 108, and in the top of 108 it says when the user enters a value on the create view, it is available in the form collection as well as the request form. So we can use any of these values to populate the employee info from the view. And it says, let's use the following code to create the employee using form collection. All right, so back in the controller where we're going to put this code. So I'm on page 108 here, and I'm looking at this code, and I'm going to add in this method. And for me, because we're already working on create, we need to get that code that we're working with. And really what we're doing is we're adding code to what we already have. All right. So just so you can see that clearly. So HTTP post, action result, create, form collection, collection. And what we're doing is we're adding stuff. You can see right here where it says to do, add insert logic here. And that's what we're adding. So we're going to be adding from the try section all of this stuff here. I'm going to copy that and paste it in. I may as well replace the comment. And you see we do have a couple of lines that are scrolling over, so that's kind of a little clue to me that I need to clean up my code a little bit. And it looks like we have multiple lines kind of condensing in. All right, just cleaning it up. And then it looks like the catch statement can say just the way it is. Now go ahead, save your work, and do a Control S there. I'm saving my PDF and not my work, which is not good. And it says run this application and request that same URL, the employee URL. So go ahead and hit the play button. Brian, you also keep reminding me I should probably turn off my script debugging at some point. Whatever, it still works. The reason for that mostly is because it runs a little faster, because it doesn't have to go through the debug process. But let's go ahead and throw the URL in here. So we're going to throw employee and pull up the list. And then what we basically just added, right, was the view that will go with this link. So you understand what we just did, right? So let's go ahead and actually click that, and then we're going to go to a form that looks like the one in the book, top of page 110. And let's actually go ahead and enter in some info. So I'm going to type in my name, I guess. And let's put in a joining date. Let's put today's date in. What is today? 28th of June already. Oh my God, the year's more than half over. Just about half over. And today, and actually we should go 06, 28. And the age, all right, I'm 29 forever, right? I don't want to be 29. You know, I'll be what I really am. And notice that my name is now embedded. So the form actually works. We are able to do basically an insert of a record after we created the view that allowed us to interface with it. Did you guys all get that to work? Right. And we are noticing that the date, isn't really pulling in correctly, is it? Right? So to me, that gives me a clue, because there's something that we might be missing in our code that makes that happen. But notice that in the book, you catching this? something was expected, right? That was kind of like the expected thing that's going on, and I assume that they're going to talk about that here in the next little section. All right, so when you read past that example, they do a little bit of talking about what just happened. And what they're saying is that what we're doing here is actually a manual binding approach. And what they mean by that is that we're kind of like going onesie-twosie here. And you know, like that issue with the date, are you noticing how the date field here it's not exactly an underline, it's like a dot, dot, dot. And there are fixes for this, believe it or not. We're not really worried about that at the moment. Now, the other point that the guy's making is this approach is okay, but if you start dealing with really large data sets where you have lots of columns and things that you're attaching to, it can make it a little bit problematic. And one of the reasons why we use some of the more automatic tools is because of that issue. All right. So let's go back now to the one that we did for employee create, which is this one. And what we're going to do now is we're going to actually change one of the parameters here. So we're going to actually change this parameter, if I'm reading this correctly. So we're going to change this to employee, and we're just going to use emp as the value that we're passing. And then we're going to come back in here, and we're going to remove a lot of this stuff and actually just boil it down to this. That's what they show in our text, or in our document, if you want to call it that. All right, so now the main difference here is now we're going to be looking at a different way of transporting the information, because now we're pulling in an employee object that already has all those like little pieces in there, and it's going to pass them on forward. So that will actually give us the values that we're moving around the application. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go back to this create view, and they're trying to point out on page 112, the second box from the top. They have a little screen there that shows we have the HTML editor 4 thing, and this is the line that they're trying to point out right here. And because we have a model attached here by name, Visual Studio will actually kind of grab that and use the same properties from the model that's already been created, and that's how it creates the view, so that we can leverage that tool to our advantage is basically what they're trying to point out here. All right. Now the thing that I've highlighted in the code is actually an HTML helper, and as long as you have everything named correctly and tied together correctly, the model binding should kick in, right? And that's kind of the point. So let's go ahead and try the next little example. So on page 112, the bottom box, they're saying run this application and request the URL, and hopefully you get the following output. So let me go ahead and do that. So I'm going to hit the run button here. All right. And I wasn't intending to actually run that particular file. I just want to run employee. I want to get to the table of results. Now, remember we had a problem with the date before, right? Where was my entry? Well, we stop the application from running it, guys. So you know what happens then? It all goes away and gets recreated. Now, you have to keep in mind that if you're running this on a server, the thought is you're not shutting it off, right? And then the other thought you should have too is that we're building towards database connectivity here in a step-by-step process. Right. Let's click Create New again. And then go ahead and type in some new information. So put in the president, why not? I use the same joining date. And how old is the president? I don't know. Is he 70, you think? Well, that's what I'm guessing. Go ahead, click the Create button, and you can see that it added in. And then notice now, you guys seeing this? That it actually did pull it in correctly because we are allowing basically the structure that we had already built to interact naturally with the code. And that's kind of the way I think of it. So you want to think of it in a different way, that's good. But the dates are sticking. Now the time isn't right, but we didn't enter a time, did we? Right, that's kind of a separate step. So believe it or not, that actually completes section 14. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to stop this video here. So I'm going to do one video per section for this particular unit. So if you were successful in this procedure, you've completed your assignment. So let's call that one done, and I will see you guys in the next video.